This chicken coop composter keys off the size of a half a sheet of plywood. So it starts out, everything works in accordance with a 48 by 48 inch piece of plywood, and you can see where I've cut it up here. Also, I've stained it with some redwood stain. These are all 45-degree angle cuts. The two big triangles will be the doors on each end. The four smaller triangles will be internal pieces that support nesting boxes and feeders. So anyway, I would recommend this as the smallest you'd want to make this composter. I suppose you could make it up to 60 inches each dimension. Of course, then you'd have to cut out of a bigger piece of plywood. Okay, next, I've got this frame I made out of 2x4 Doug fir. There's the outside dimension. You can actually get this out of an 8-foot length if you are smart and you cut the angle in the middle the right way. I'll let you figure that out. You can see where I screwed it together with deck screws. Okay, here's some 2x6 redwood that I ripped. This piece actually fits around the outside of the 2x4 piece. And once again, I've screwed the corners with some 3-inch galvanized deck screws. Here you can see how the redwood piece fits around the Doug fir piece. And I use redwood, cedar would work, something with some rot resistance. That the outer piece is going to take a lot more abuse, have more potential for rot than the inner piece. So, I suppose you could use pressure treated. Okay, here's the form for the foundation that goes under the composter. Just some old 2x4s I had. You see I cut the angle, instead of 90 degrees, I cut it 80 degrees. Some saws will read this as 10 degrees, but it's actually 80 degrees on the ends of the four form boards. So taper the edge of the slab out a little bit. You'll see how that works a little later on. And I've got 73 inches inside dimensions both ways. I'm all set up now, about ready to pour. You can see the screed board in the center. I just drove in a piece of 1-inch pipe I had. That'll come out later. You can see the angle of the screed. The entire slab is going to form a slight cone in towards the center to retain compost and a little bit of excess water. I live in a pretty dry climate, so this should work well. If you live in a really wet climate where there's going to be a lot of rain get in, you might just want to make a flat slab. Otherwise, you might accumulate too much water and have a mucky mess. The 80 degree, you can see why I did that. Worked out about right, or 83 might have been a little more accurate, but 83, 80, whatever. Got some 1/2-inch rebar there. The whole slab is going to be about 5 inches thick. 3.5 inches thick is just not quite enough in my opinion. A little deeper around the edges. On the corners I've got some 3/8-inch rebar. This rebar isn't quite as critical and I might need to bend it later. So the 3/8 is a little easier to bend than the 1/2. You can see where I've got it 6 inches in each direction off the corner. That's kind of a maximum, between 5 and 6. 6 is the exact measurement. Okay, also in the center of all four sides I've got a mark. You can see these marks. I'm gonna put these piece of 3/4-inch PVC pipe into the slab. 3 of them on each side. There's location of one in the middle, another one, maybe 1.5 or 2 inches in from the edge. They're going to be a little retainer thing. I want to do a real quick rundown on how I mix concrete. Not that anybody else should do it this way, it's just how I do it. Okay, I use proportions. This is a pea gravel sand mix, con mix. I use 14 of those, 14 shovelfuls of pea gravel to 3 shovelfuls of regular Portland cement. And I start out with a little water in the mixer, put in 4 gravel and sand, put in the 3 cement, add some water to get it nice and runny, Let it mix for a minute. Add in the last 10 gravel and sand. Add enough water to get it about right consistency. You don't want it too loose. I don't know if you can see this very well. This is probably maybe a little on the loose side, maybe just right, whatever. And let it mix for a minute while you're out dumping the previous load. That's just how I mix concrete. If you get the the pre-mixed concrete in the bags that has the sand, the gravel, and cement in it, I would recommend adding a little bit of Portland cement to each bag of that mix. They tend to go a little weak on it. They skimp on the cement, save money. They got the minimum legal amount in there. So that's about it. You probably have to get on the internet, and somebody's got to have something on their ideas on how to mix concrete. I've got a big pile of gravel here, so it's pretty easy for me. I didn't even have to figure out how much I needed. I just got a little extra cement and went for it. But if you're doing it specific to your project, you're going to have to get it figured out so you don't have a bunch of extra, or even worse, run short. I finished pouring the slab. Ended up taking just a little more than 5 sacks of cement. Put some cans on top of the rebar so nobody gets poked. This is just a chicken coop, so nothing fancy. Just gave it a rough trowel down, the fiberglass trowel. You can see where I put the 1-inch long, 3/4 inch PVC pipe. Put a little edge on it. I kept the slab wet for about 5 days after I poured it. Now I've placed the outer frame in the center of the slab, and I've made some marks that I can plumb bob down from the upper structure down to the slab and locate the upper structure correctly. So the marks are on the inside of the frame here, and the marks are 12 inches or 30.5 centimeters in on all 4 corners. Now the marks are actually on the inside of the frame. There's the mark that I'm going to plumb to. There's 4 marks like that. I've made some more marks on all 4 corners. Here's the mark that I made before. It's 12 inches in from each side. 6 and 6 is 12. That's to the inside of that wood frame that I had laid down there. Well, I just split that, and I made 2 more sets of marks that are just parallel to the edges. So I split that. Also, I made a 45-degree angled line there. It's 5.5 inches wide. That's because the forms for the stone are not going to be square on the corner. They're going to have that corner clipped off in a 45-degree angle to allow more room for the rebar to be encased in mortar. Here's some 2x4 that I've laid out to support the formwork. You can see how it relates to the lines that I drew earlier. It's about the thickness of a 1x4, about 3/4 of an inch in from those lines. You can see over here, here's some actual pieces in place, roughly how they'll be. I used some 1x6 there. I got this out of some pallets that I tore apart. Then, here's a sample piece of 1x4. I got a whole bundle of this stuff for cheap. It's just reject stuff they couldn't sell off the end of a unit. Here's some more 1x6 that I tore off a couple pallets. They need to be at least 42-inch pallets to be long enough. Okay, here's one more measurement I might have forgotten. From corner to corner, we've got 52.5 inches, or 133.3 centimeters.